Okay. We're going to clean the lens a little bit. But look, take a look at the camera. Sorry. That's live. That's good. Let me look at just my screen. Okay. We're live there. We're live there. We're live for 48 seconds. Let's see. Go ahead and just start talking about okay. Those two. Twitter is live. YouTube is live. So you know, figure out what's going on with this. I think that's fun. So be able to loop back.
Hello, Husky Nation. Welcome to Husky Maven Sports Illustrated pregame show, UCLA edition. Mike Martin and I are
Coffee with Kaila.
Coffee with Kaila, exactly. It's that early. We are live here at FSP Ford Sports Performance in Bellevue, where some of the top athletes in the state of Washington, even outside of Washington, make their trip to come up here and train with Tracy Ford, who we've had on quite a few times, a very, very special guest. And speaking of very special guests, homecoming. UCLA at home, Washington coming off of a bye. There's going to be tons of alumni there, a lot of great guests getting featured kind of throughout the game.
The biggest guest, though, Kaila?
I know you know, and I know you know.
Okay, you tell me.
No, you tell. I'll do the drum roll. Ready?
Carol James, Jill James, Jeff James, and Jenny James. The entire James gang is going to be on the field today for the kickoff, along with the captains from the 1991 National Championship season. That was, you weren't around then, that was 30 years ago. To me, it seems just like yesterday. It's going to be so cool to have them out there. I will be publishing a story here in a little bit about what the coin toss means to Carol, but it's a pretty funny story, to be honest.
Yeah, that was probably the worst drum roll for such a great honor and such a great family. But like I said, that's going to be one of many names that are going to be showing up. So make sure you do get there to support not only the 2021 football program right now, but those who came before them, who helped bring a national championship title to Washington. So it's going to be fun seeing who shows up. NFL players are on buys, they can definitely make their trip there. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm super excited, and we have a great show lined up for you as we kind of talk about this. We don't get to do shows often, so it's always a really fun, special treat here while we get to do so. And kickoff 5:30, not bad. Could be later, could be 7. It's not, thankfully.
Yep.
Other than that, cannot complain. I mean, it's not supposed to rain, so there's that too. Can't have any thunder and lightning if that's there. It is also the first time Chip Kelly has been in Washington on Montlake in a long time.
Since he was with the Ducks, is that right? I hadn't even thought about that angle.
Yep, has not been to Washington under the UCLA program. Last time was with Oregon. I believe he came with a win from that. Yeah.
As he did when he would go to most places.
Chip Kelly changed football.
There's a little bit more to the story than actually changing football, because in 1968, the Ohio State Buckeyes were on the verge of running 100 plays. and they decided that it was not the way football was supposed to be played. So they were actually doing stuff like that long before Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly just cracked open that old, the scheme of running play after play after play, making your opponent try to keep up with you, turning it into a track meet, and the fittest wins. Maybe not the best athletes, maybe not the best scheme, but if you can exhaust the other team, that's what they did. So,
you definitely kind of know a lot more about Chip Kelly and everything he's done just because he has been around for a lot longer than I have. That is for sure. He's been coaching longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, and so everyone wants to give him far more credit than he is due. All he did was just dust off old playbooks. Credit him for finding the right school, the right scheme, but the right school and the right players to be able to execute that. He was able to be at Oregon for 2 years while he got everybody on the same page so that when he took over, he was able to do that.
And, speaking of James and the legacy he's left behind and legacies that coaches and the impact that they've had on programs, Don James, very much the dog father here at Washington. How would you say Oregon fans kind of really view Chip Kelly in their eyes? Is that almost their knight in shining armor there?
He didn't win a national championship.
Well, nobody has,
he got them close. So he right now is the best coach they ever had. Rich Brooks took them to the Rose Bowl. He, close to, a couple of top 10 finishes before he bolted for the NFL. But here's a fun fact. You talked about the dog father at UCLA. Did you know that Don James only had a losing record to one Pac-10 team? That's UCLA. He went 5-8 against them. He went 9-8 against USC.
Yeah, and Washington as a whole only has 3 losing records in the conference. In general, UCLA being one of them, followed by USC, and then ASU.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
And so, UCLA had been good for many, many, many years. Washington actually didn't get a win against UCLA in the Rose Bowl for such a long time until they made that trip down there a couple of seasons ago. And
it's almost like the problems that they have down in the desert, if it's Arizona or Arizona State. So many things that could go wrong, would go wrong, and they just they weren't able to for some reason pull together against the Bruins or the Sun Devils. And I think Arizona State, you talked about it, that is one school that the Huskies do not have a winning record against.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be interesting a little bit to kind of see how Washington handles UCLA, as Washington is coming off of that bye. UCLA a little bit differently. They've had a pretty decent matchup, I would say, so far this season. They're currently sitting 2-1 in the conference, 4-2 overall. I know Trevor Mueller, that was his big South team that he was always rooting for. He's a big Chip Kelly fan. How much is his wife being an Oregon fan have to do with that? No, I'm kidding. But UCLA has it all laid out to be very decent and very good. Chip Kelly finally getting his players in the program how he wants it. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, very veteran quarterback, probably the most veteran quarterback in the conference right now. You have all the playmakers there. It's set to be really a good season for them. They come out and get a huge win against the then ranked number 16 LSU, who looks to be on the downside a little bit this season, but it's still a huge win for them nonetheless. And UCLA losing that game against Arizona State a couple weeks ago, that was probably the game for the South. A lot of people were saying, just because that was looked to be the top 2 teams. Falling to Arizona State, that was really tough for UCLA. Washington is 1-1 in the conference, 2-3 overall, coming off of a bye after that loss down in Corvallis. So this game is really open for either team right now.
And that's the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, Kaila, is how open is this game for Washington? Is this where they ultimately will measure Jimmy Lake? Is this the game where they ultimately will measure Jimmy Lake? Because K. Dotton is supposed to be back. ZTF may be back. The Huskies are healthier than they have been in a very long time. I think Rome is a full go. Jalen McMillan is a full go. I think Richard Newton, who has been hampered by some injuries, they're healthy. They've had an extra week to go back and self-scout, to take a look at who they are, what they're successful doing. And is this where they say, okay, John Donovan, you are staying in the coach's box, okay? That is something that they could check off the list. The health is something that they could check off the list. Self-scouting is something they could check off the list. An extra week to prepare. Is this, in your opinion, is this the game that ultimately determines the legacy of Jimmy Lake? Because they should have the first two drives scripted. They should be able to come out guns a-blazing and just offensively and defensively.
And I'm going to kind of go ahead and answer this question partially, just because yes and no. I'll definitely break.
Are you trying to take all the pages out of my book?
Yeah, honestly.
I always like to give
yes and no, a little bit of each. But yes, because this is going to complete a chapter in terms of the first half of the season, because this bye week basically is directly in the middle of Washington season. And Coach Pete, I think, only lost once in his years at Washington from coming off of a bye. I don't even think at all. Either way, Chris Peterson was a great coach. He used that bye week properly. Not only did he go out and recruit, but he also made a game plan solid enough to beat whoever they were playing following that bye. This one will be interesting to see how Jimmy Lake does use that bye week. Will there be adjustments made that are necessary to be made? Like you said, they had checked off moving John Donovan up to the coach's box. That one's done. Health is, check, little check minus, because I do not believe that we will see ZTF at all today. It is his first week back of practices, padded. So I don't believe that is a game ready, and I don't want to rush him either. So there's that one there. But if Jimmy does not come with a game plan, a solid game plan, after having 2 weeks to prepare for this UCLA matchup against a team who is not Oregon, there is very much a win slated for Washington here. With that being said, it does determine how he is viewed in terms of preparedness and getting ready for the next opponent after such a long period of time. I don't, however, think that it kind of writes his legacy at Washington. I think this is a season-defining game. Washington cannot lose this game if they want to kind of stay in contention for that Pac-12 North, just because it is wide open.
It's still on the table. They do not control their own destiny.
100%. But if they do lose to UCLA, all of a sudden this needs to go right, this needs to go right, this needs to go right, quadruples in order for, it's been done. Washington did win the Pac-12 in 2018 with 2 losses in the conference.
And I know you're not a Mariners fan, but it's, I don't want a situation, I don't want to see Twitter and Facebook blow up if they lose to UCLA by 1, and then it comes down to a tiebreaker sort of at the end of the season, and they can't get to the conference championship game because of 1 point.
And then not only that, but okay, so you lost to UCLA and then you went out, but the dominoes don't fall in terms of who you need to then lose.
Yeah,
that's probably one of the most frustrating things, and so Washington does need to win this game.
Yeah, and for the Mariners, they had everything fall the right way, except they lost to 3 of 4 to Kansas City. If they win 3 out of 4, Boston or New York is having a play-in game to play them. So
Angels ruined Mariners.
yes, but that being said, that wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
That the
100%. Or you don't even drop one game in the middle of the season, just anywhere.
Yes.
You know.
And so thinking of that, of how the one pitch that Seager took or Kelnick took that if he had swung on it and just advanced the guy another base and the dominoes, I think that the Huskies now have to be able to look at the players. Not me being a player,
I was like,
but the players have to be able to look at themselves in the mirror and make one better play every single game, because that's all it would have taken to beat Oregon State. If every single player made one better play, it's a blowout. If one person didn't get a silly penalty, if somebody had bounced the ball outside and gotten an extra yard on 4th and 1,
did miss a tackle, yeah, the list goes on.
Yeah. So at this point, the Huskies have to be in the mindset of not that they want to be tight and have to play a perfect game, still play loose and free, but have your head in the game, because we've seen a taunting, we've seen coming out in the first play of a game a delay of game penalty, and those things have to be solved. And for me, that's what I am going to be looking for in this game. If that message was delivered, where Jimmy Lake can say, "We're still in this, guys. I still need you to play with your hair on fire, but with your head screwed on straight."
Yeah.
I think that is how he will be measured off of this game.
Exactly, and that's why I don't think it's a legacy-defining game for Jimmy Lake, in terms of we will for sure base his time at Washington off of UCLA. It comes down to, I think, us as fans, media, however you kind of want to look at it, will judge Jimmy Lake based off of his preparedness again, just in terms on how he does, kind of like you say, bounce back. Is Jimmy Lake a bounce back coach? I almost called him a quarterback. My goodness, that's how I haven't started drinking my coffee yet. But yeah, his season will come down to the Apple Cup, because it will be the game for the record for the longest win streak in the Apple Cup.
And the thing that Jimmy Lake likes to talk about is it's a fight. It's a prize fight out there. And, we took their blows, we delivered some blows, and we came out on top. Well, do you think that Jimmy Lake is backed into a corner and he needs to stop taking hits and he needs to swing his way out of the corner?
Yeah, I think that's a good kind of comparison in terms of boxing and going toe-to-toe. And he will be going toe-to-toe with every single head coach and team and person of media, fan base, whatever, the rest of the season. If Jimmy drops another one and Washington picks up their 4th loss of the season, that's the best they can do is 8-4. But their schedule is not set up to finish 8-4 with who they have left to play. Arizona State being, probably the top contender in the South. I would even say at this point, I have them favored to win the championship title at the end of the season. ASU does come to Seattle, so they're...
Remind me who called that at the beginning of the season.
I think you were still a big fan of Arizona.
Wow.
If
Wow.
I remember correctly.
Here you go. Drink up.
Yeah, honestly. But, Washington should win Arizona, Colorado, but these are some of those 50-50 games that if Washington wants to make it to a bowl game at this point, they need to be one.
Yeah, and we're going to get to key players of the game, our Kaila's keys to the game, but if you had to pick one message, if you were going in to that locker room as you were a captain on your team in high school, if you were going into the locker room before the game, what would your message be to the players?
Yeah, that's a really tough question because I think there's a lot of things that can be said just because the season hasn't shaped out to, I think, the way that the players, coaches, everybody really saw kind of Washington going. And I know Chip Kelly said in his pre-game or, that weekly press conference before this week is, he's not looking past Washington. Even if it seems that Washington is getting a lot of negativity right now, if it seems kind of their season's not going the way it should, that he's not looking past Washington. And that's something I think I'd be saying in the locker room is, cool, if they're looking past us or not, prove them wrong. Like, who gives an F what people are saying right now, because it's not about anybody besides those players and those coaches. It's not about anybody else besides those people in the locker room, and prove them wrong. Let them eat their words, Who cares what they have to say if they don't want to ride with us, and they don't have to because we ride together. And that's all that matters is that brotherhood in the locker room and putting on for each other, not for pleasing anybody outside of that locker room. Because at the end of the day, they live with each other, they play with each other, they practice with each other.
And for me, what I've talked about how it rubs me the wrong way when Dylan Morris was tapping his arm for this ice water in my veins to bring the Huskies back against. I think it was Utah.
He actually did the tap, I thought, with Arizona.
He was
wearing the black. They were wearing the blackout for Arizona.
Either way, it was where he brought them from behind, and it rubbed me the wrong way that he did that. Well, and my stance is you don't tap on because you brought your team back. You tap on your arm because there's ice water in your veins, because you played a complete game, because you kicked the crap out of them in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and you beat them like they did in 1991, where they went out, played 3 quarters for guys like Mario Bailey and those guys, but they played a complete game, and they didn't have to dig themselves out of a hole that they made themselves. Yeah. That to me is where I look at. I don't want to see a guy tapping, but so where I'm going with this is that for me, I want to see an alpha dog show up. I want somebody like Alameda talked about, where they're out on the field and Jake Locker comes up to him and he says, "I'm tired of carrying your ass. You need to step up." And he got in his face, and it made Alameda go, "You know what? Am I the one that's holding this team back?" And Alameda looked at himself in the mirror, and it made him a better player because somebody took the accountability to the player. And that's what I need to see out of this team, is not tapping their ice water in their veins, is grabbing somebody by the face mask and saying, "Cut the crap, don't miss that tackle, get open, the route was this. I don't want to see 2 receivers on the same route. You got to know which route you're on." Get in somebody's face if that's what it's going Okay, love can only get you so far.
100%.
Okay, you can only say "I love you, dog" so much, to where at some point you have to say "I love you," but I'm going to put my foot in your butt if you screw up again.
You missed one more tackle. Yeah, no, 100%. I did look it up, and you were right. It was the Utah game, not Arizona. Which is crazy because there was only 4 games last season. Like, I'm really dropping the ball here on my memory. I blame not having coffee. But no, I don't know if, honestly, I don't know if some of these listeners had got a chance to kind of hear the pitch show just from this last week. And you and I actually kind of talked, and we didn't really have an argument about it, but I brought up accountability. Because at that time, or you're wanting to say, I don't want to call kids out, or I don't want Jimmy Lake to single out kids or anybody like that. And it was never singling out kids, but it was accountability, and it was Jimmy Lake holding coaches accountable. It was other players holding other players accountable. And I'm not saying that there's not players in there who aren't pissed. Some people who are dropping the ball figuratively, literally, however you kind of want to go about it. But at the end of the day, like you're saying, there needs to be people held accountable for their mistakes, because that's the only way you get better. And, I guarantee you, Nick Saban holds his players accountable.
On the field.
On the field, exactly. And so, at that point, it's kind of just...
Mario Cristobal.
No, literally,
Okay.
I was watching that on TV, and I was telling Mario Cristobal, "Yes, sir." I was feeling it then. I was like, "Yes, sir," and I wasn't even there.
And I want to see the alpha side of somebody step up.
Yeah.
Jackson Kirkland, the biggest dude on the field. Okay, maybe Julius Buelow.
I know. I'd like to see some Sean McGrew pulling someone up down to his level. Like in The Blind Side, where Sandra Bullock straight pulls him down to her level.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
But I was gonna go somewhere with that, and then I completely lost my train of thought.
It happens. You'll remember kind of 5 minutes before the show ends.
Yeah,
but
somebody to because this team is so close.
Yeah.
They have all the talent. They have in their starting lineup. They're one of the most talented team in the conference.
Like I was saying, it has been slated for Washington to, make a statement this season in terms of the players, the schedule, all of it. It has been laid out, kind of like the yellow brick road. You just got to follow it. And right now, Washington is cutting through all the different paths that they can cut through, and it's been a very, very difficult road so far this first half of the season. And I think you put it best, Mike, when you said that Washington needs an alpha dog. And it's never been in question. I think you brought it up once that, who's going to step up in that veteran role and be a leader. And it's not even just be a leader in terms of making plays on the field, but it's being a leader in the locker room and in the off season and behind the cameras and off the field in terms of holding people accountable. So, will we see that? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's something that was changed on this bye week. Maybe the players reevaluated while the coaches were on the road recruiting in terms of, somebody is stepping up. We'll find out. We'll find out for sure. Speaking of...
Let's take a brief break because we're going to do an audio check. I want to make sure everybody can hear us on Facebook. We're doing a live mic from the phones. So we're going to check real quick on those. So bear with us for about a minute. We're going to talk about virtually nothing. You may see a little bit of an echo. Here, a little bit of an echo. Okay, I'm going to have you talk, and I'm going to put on the other mic.
All right, very quick break.
It's not working.
It happens all the time. But kind of looking ahead, Washington, we already talked about facing UCLA. It is a very big game. And with that being said, Kickoff 5:30 at home. Homecoming, super exciting. We're going to go ahead and break down when Washington has the ball, when Washington is on defense. We'll talk about my Kaila's piece. We'll talk about some key players to watch.
We're going to also look at high school football.
Yeah, definitely look at high school football because there's a couple of great games. I know one that I am really, really, really looking forward to actually see today is Sumner and Graham Housen. That should be a great game. It's both are in the top 5 for state of Washington. They face off tonight. So
and today, I forget who Lake Stevens, the #1 team in the state, with Husky target J.D. Lindmar. That's also a big game, and you really don't need to hold this.
It makes me feel cool.
But we're going to go ahead and we're going to have to share this microphone. So we're going to look a little bit at what's going on around the world of high school football in the state of Washington. But we had Quentin Jan Wagner on. Okay?
Yeah, what a gem.
And such a good kid, but you talk about an alpha dog that we were just talking about, and he is that guy that is going to get teams fired up, his teammates fired up, just because of his story of coming back from nearly a career-ending injury. He tore his ACL. Then he had surgery, then he had an infection in his knee, and now he has his team on track to make the playoffs, and they could make a big run because a couple of weeks ago, Marysville Pilchuck knocked off Ferndale it was by 30 points. It wasn't close. I don't know what happened in that game, but Ferndale has Isaiah Carlson, Landon Hatchett, 2 guys that have a lot of D1 offers from across the country. And Quentin, because of his knee, he hasn't attracted all the offers yet. But coming off of yesterday's victory over Marysville Pilchuck, who killed Ferndale, and Arlington lost to Ferndale by 18-17, 3 weeks ago. To take down Marysville Pilchuck, who I think Tracy had as his number 16 in the state. What a statement by them, and that's what we talked about, the alpha dog. So, that's a big thing to watch. I would love to see, have a crystal ball and see who they play here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Ferndale kind of really taking care of business last night against Stanwood, 48-30. That was a huge win, especially because kind of we talked about teams controlling their own destiny, really, and needing to keep things in line for postseason. That is one of them. 6-1 overall, 2-1 in the league is really huge. I would say in general, Ferndale is set up to go far. They do play in a really tough group of some top tier programs. But I know you want them to succeed. You're a Ferndale alumni, so I know that one's a big one for you. In general, though, I think Ferndale and Quentin Jan Wagner is somebody who can go far, and because of the obstacles he's had to overcome. I'm not saying Washington needs somebody to overcome. Maybe ZTF is that person now, who had a huge injury like that, who's had to bounce back and had to fight his way back, watch his teammates kind of while he was on the sideline. Maybe that's what Washington needed. Maybe that's what ZTF is doing right now. We're not sure. But having that person on your team who can literally be like, I did this. I had to go through that. Like, now I'm asking you to fight too. I'm asking you to step up. Like, you to fight how I had to fight. And so it's a good person to have on your team. That's for sure. And then I know just in general, there's a lot of kids who do train here at FSP, where we are live for sports performance in Bellevue, that are all a part of those top 5, programs here in the state of Washington right now. Sumner, Graham Housen, Eastside Catholic just beat, Rainier Beach. And I was a little bit shocked by that one.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talent, and around the state, you see a guy like Josh Connerly and Caleb Presley, and Rainier Beach has some freaks.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't even, Jalen Green. Trying to think of Nate Robinson's son. Nazir, I think his name is, but they have some studs that teams can hang with them. Shows you how good the other teams are, because Rainier Beach have a lot of guys that are going D1, and other teams being able to hang with them is kind of surprising. But nobody seems to be able to hang with the Bellevue Wolverines. They are 7-0 on the season. They have scored 352 points, given up 71 through 7 games. And Michael Knipe, we got to sit down with him on our show a couple weeks ago. And last night, they beat 5-1 Liberty 53-7. So you look up and down, and it was really funny when I interviewed Michael Knipe. Did I say Knipe earlier? Anyway, it's Michael Knipe. He said, you might look up and down our roster and wonder, where's the varsity? Because they don't have the 6'3", 300 offensive lineman. They don't have the 6'1", 220 running back. They don't have the 6'5", 240 tight end. But what they do have is guys that trust that the guy next to them is going to make the play, that they're going to execute their assignment, that they're going to do the right things on the field. And that makes it so that they could know their own assignment. They don't have to feel like they're going to compensate for the other player. And that makes that Bellevue team, the machine is back.
And then not only that, but you kind of want to go ahead and also look at the system and people buying into that Bellevue culture, right? We had a guest on last show we had a couple weeks ago who talked about, being the ball boy since he was little, and then, training with Buda Baker and literally buying into that system when they're still wearing glow light up sneakers, And that's kind of what makes that program so special. Is it something that those kids, and needless to say, it's very, very different kind of, comparing college to high school, because, you don't really get to go and always pick your high school. Sometimes you get that option, but for the most part, you grow up assuming you're not going to move, knowing where you're going to play high school and knowing what you want to do and what colors you do want to wear on those Friday nights. But that culture that they have in there, you could just see the way Michael was talking about his players and the way that those two players were talking about each other and the rest of their teammates, and the culture and why they love playing for Bellevue makes their season and what they're doing that much more special.
And one of the guys, and I cannot even think of, but George Kruger, and it's going to kill me. I'm looking at their roster right now.
Look up their jail roster, remember?
The JV.
The jail roster that you had me searching for somebody's name.
Ishan Daniels.
There you go.
Ishan, the dude is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And he had an opportunity to go play for Seattle Prep. And he said, I'm going to stay with my guys.
Yep.
And something like that, when you have somebody that says, I'm here for the long haul. There's no transfer portal for these kids. They're going to finish out, and they're going to play for each other and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, that being said, I kind of want to get your super early prediction. Does Bellevue win the state title this year?
I'll look up Lincoln. I thought that was going to be a much bigger game than it was. Bellevue ran away from Lincoln. Can you pull up Lincoln's? I think that man is the Kayla's question. She loves doing this, putting people on the spot.
It's my favorite thing. It's why I do what I do.
Will Bellevue win? I can't see anybody stopping them at this point. There's nobody. Everybody looks beatable except for Bellevue. So you have Rainier Beach up.
Work on it.
He's working on it. Rainier Beach and Bellevue. Those are two teams that I think could make the deepest run. Lake Stevens. I think that Tracy Ford probably has things nailed down. Graham Powson, I don't know if I said that right. They have a stacked roster, and they have a lot of D1 talent on there. A guy that you know, Juice.
Yeah.
They have a lot of guys. So this is going to be one of the most exciting playoff seasons that I can recall, just because there are some powerhouses, but there are also teams with wild cards, because if Eshawn can go off in a game, if Isaiah Carlson can go off, if Jaden Lindmar, if Jason Brown, we can't forget about O'Day. They're stacked as well. So, and then you throw in Seattle Prep. They could spoil a lot of seasons because they have a lot of talent. They're sitting at 4-3, but they have some big games coming up where they could ruin some teams' seasons. So right now, obviously the favorite is Bellevue, because they're giving up 10 points a game and scoring. In most high school basketball teams would be happy to put that many points on the board.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to look at, leagues and who plays who in the regular season, and I think that's where Graham Kapowson and Sumner kind of struggle a little bit, because they're Lake Stevens is not an easy league at all by any means, but they don't really have to play Sumner in their regular season, whereas that is kind of what I was saying earlier. That is the game if Washington had an early kickoff today, I was going to go to that Graham Kapowson and Sumner game, and it's going to be probably the deciding factor on who wins that league title there. They do play tonight, Scott, because somebody's going to lose. They're both 6-0. Someone is going to lose tonight. And Lake Stevens is kind of how we're referring back, Washington, it's kind of slated out for them to have a really, really successful season. I see Lake Stevens going very, very, very far. That's going to be my guess on that one.
Yeah, and maybe a better defense than Bellevue's is Lake Stevens. They've given up 30 points in 3 games. Today they played Jackson, who's 2-4. It should be a bone-crushing display. Last game, Jaden texted me that he had 189 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on 9 carries, and then he had 4 receptions for something like 64 yards. So in 13 touches, he had about 200 of the all-purpose yards. So they can do it defensively, and then they have Mr. Untouchable on offense.
It's just having all those pieces finally there, and something finally clicking in those players. And kind of speaking of all the pieces there, we referred to Washington and UCLA already, with pieces being there for both teams. UCLA very veteran heavy, Washington having that stacked roster like we were talking about. Shall we move on to this UCLA and Washington preview?
We are.
Perfect. Awesome. So kind of looking ahead, some big names to watch for UCLA is obviously going to be their quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He was been around since a long time since Sam Darnold. I believe they were the exact same recruiting class. He's been around for a while. But I think it's also pretty cool to note, Washington does have two former players now with UCLA in the quarterback position with Colson Yankoff, Ethan Garbers. But the big name you really got to watch for is going to be Zach Charbonnet, the running back out of UCLA. On 88 attempts, he has 566 yards on the season so far, 7 touchdowns along with 47. So when he finds those gaps, he is gone.
That is very Chip Kelly. To have a feature back like that, somebody good size, good speed, but a scheme that stresses the defense to cover everything. There's no zone that you can't defend because he will find a way to exploit that. And Chardonnay is a great guy for that.
And you kind of talk about Chip Kelly doing what Chip Kelly does best, and that's always keeping defense on their toes. And the two leading receivers, wide receiver Kyle Phillips, on 24 receptions so far in the season alone, has 369 yards, averaging 15.4 yards a catch, along with 75, 6 touchdowns. And then the second one is going to be that tight end, Greg Dulcich, and 19 receptions, 349 yards, averages 18.4 yards a catch, 75 is his long as well. So for a tight end, someone who can go 75 yards, it's a big boy you got to bring down. So those are definitely probably the top 4 names that Washington fans and Washington themselves will have to keep an eye out for.
And the thing that I think what the Huskies have to do is to not collapse the pocket, but try to contain DTR because he's a guy that can stress the defense. The Huskies are coming in averaging, they have 9 sacks through 5 games. If they can just kind of pin down DTR in the pocket, I think that bodes very well for the Huskies. The defense backs are going to make it very difficult on him. So if they can lock him inside the pocket, make him go through his progressions where the linebackers are doing their job, where trying to think of Thule, Taki, Taimani, the killer T's. If they can, really just kind of control that line of scrimmage with an extra week off. They looked like they were wearing down at the end of the Beaver game because they got worn down at the end of the Cal game. I think with this break, it does them well against that UCLA offense.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up DTR and just, kind of containing him because he's going to be very much like Chase Garbers in terms of very, very elusive. If he can't get it done with his arm, he will definitely try and do something with his legs. So far on the season, he's got 70 attempts at rushing, 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, along with 35. So he is fast, and that's going to be, where Washington was seeing hit in the backfield, couldn't quite bring him down. And so we'll see if Washington can kind of go ahead and figure that one out with DTR as well. I think a big name to watch for Washington on defense today is going to be Kyla Gordon, of course, leading interceptions.
Who's he?
I don't know. Have you heard of him? I definitely haven't. No, but Kyla Gordon, getting it done in the air. Great pass coverage, especially against Oregon State. It was only targeted a couple times. Ed 41 tackles, leading tackler for the defense right now for Washington. See if he can get anything done, and then we should see Buki back, hopefully. So that's going to be another big name on defense to watch as well.
Yeah, and who can you what does this Washington team look like healthy? Especially the defense. If they can get um, the line to be rested, to get Bookie back, to get ZTF, where he doesn't have to go in and get the sacks, but get the pressure, maintain the pocket. We've seen that was it Taimani that had that sack against Oregon State where he slapped the ball out.
Yep.
They have the tools on defense, but I think that the extra week will do well for the Huskies.
Yeah, let's definitely hope so. I know a lot of Washington players kind of went down to injuries down there in Corvallis, so that extra week will definitely make a world of a difference, hopefully. In terms of talking about when Washington has the ball now, let's kind of talk about those star players to watch for Washington. Kind of mentioning, health and getting back to full capacity in terms of your starters. Richard Newton seems to be a go again. Cade Otton, I know Jimmy Lake mentioned that he is out of COVID protocols now. He should be back.
Who's that?
I don't know that one either. Wait, are you going to say
Cade Otton?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you were doing another.
No, I was. I'm trying to do 18 things at once.
Trying to do 18 things, that's what happens. Dylan Morris, can he have a great game? Can he have an Arizona 2020 game? Or is it going to be a little bit of a struggle? That's a person you're really going to want to watch for. I think Sean McGrew has done a great job carrying the workload the last couple of games Richard Newton has been out. He's going to make a world of a difference in that running game. Kamari Pleasant as well looked outstanding against Oregon State. He had a bunch of first down runs for a big chunk of yardage to keep Washington's drive going forward. And then receiving wise, Terrell Bynum being healthy, Cade Otton being back, and Jalen McMillan. I think those are some three big names that you need to watch for today against this decent UCLA secondary.
And when Washington has the ball, I think it's going to be important to spread the ball around. I hope that what the Huskies were able to do during the time that they were scouting UCLA is maybe pull a page out of the UCLA's playbook, because that's, I think, some of what John Donovan, a scheme that he's trying to run, is somewhat pro style, but a lot of zone stuff and just. So I hope that when Washington spent the time scouting UCLA, that they were able to say, this guy right here, that's the play this is what we wanted you to do on that play, because Charbonnet, he doesn't just go for the hole that is there. He's creative. He finds holes, and if they could say to Richard Newton, take a look at this. You don't always have to hit the A gap if it's not there. You don't have to try to pile drive into there. You can use it, bounce off, spin, hit the B gap, do other things. If you can see that it's not there, bouncing. It seems like this year he hasn't been as creative with his running as he has been. I think he's still physical. I think he's been hampered by injuries. So, and then the way that UCLA, Chip Kelly, uses gadgets, where I think you have a Sean McGrew that can do a lot of go-go gadget type things, where get him in space, where he can do the wildcat, where he's going to do the wildcat. And is this the game where he does a little pop pass over the pile on 4th and 1 instead of the wildcat? We'll see, just exactly what the Huskies do creatively, offensively, because this is the kind of game that you have to be ready to go toe to toe, but you also have to be ready to land that haymaker.
100%. And I have a couple questions for you kind of about Washington's offense. First one, going back to Corvallis and speaking of John Donovan and the Wildcat. I haven't asked. Were you upset when Washington didn't run Wildcat when they went for it on fourth down for their last drive? Because it was working all game.
Well, but here's the thing that you get when it's been working all game, is that it's been working all game, but then why did you run Wildcat? They were expecting the Wildcat. Okay, it's a no-win situation. This Washington offensive line should be able to get you 2 yards in any game, in any situation. This should not come down to the play call. This should come down to the alpha dogs asserting themselves and saying, we're not going to let anybody push us around. If it's a Wildcat, if it's a quarterback, if it's a toss sweep, whatever it is, we're going to play Washington football, and that means we're going to push you around, and we're going to get that yard. If it's Richard Newton, if it's Sean McGrew, if it's Dylan Morris.
I love that you brought up that this offensive line should get 2 yards no matter what the play call is, and I don't think I had personally kind of thought of that. I know I was a little upset at the time kind of seeing that call there, but I do like that you kind of opened my eyes in terms of, there is the standard, and there should be the standard, and the offensive line should get 2 yards no matter the play call. And a lot of great coordinators say, even if it's not the right play call, something should still work. The talent is there that something should still work. That is one of them. And then kind of the other question I was going to have for you is, I know Jimmy Lake came in last season with his hat, run the damn ball. He said he didn't want to be a air raid offense. He wanted to be pretty balanced. Washington numbers so far this season, 583 rushing yards, 1,293 passing yards. But not double, but 8 rushing touchdowns, 7 passing touchdowns. Now that there's 7 weeks now into the season, does Washington have an offensive identity? And by that, I kind of mean, is Washington's identity passing?
You're not going to like my answer.
Yes and no.
My answer is their offensive identity right now is can't run the damn ball. Okay?
Yeah.
They have to find a way to, if it's the offensive line, if it's the defensive line, if it's the running back, whatever. When your leading rusher through 6 games is averaging 60 yards a game, that's a red flag, really.
Yeah.
Okay. There's something that isn't working, and what is the offensive identity? Chris Peterson liked to say that we don't have an identity. We run plays. We find the play that will have the most likely success on a given down, and that's why his playbook was so complicated, because it wasn't a Chip Kelly playbook or a Mike Leach playbook, which is 8 pass plays and 1 run play. Okay, Chris Peterson, you had to have guys in motion. You had to have all these moving parts, and you had to try to figure out what they were going to do. With Mike Leach, it's where they're going to do it.
I mean, where they're going to throw it.
Yes, where they're going to do it. So that is where. So I think that with Donovan, the identity that I would like to see, I'm going to say is going to take a Sean McGrew grabbing Jackson Kirkland, or grabbing Henry Bainabalu, or MJ Olin, or any of those, Julius Buelow, and say, I didn't come back to play like this.
Yeah.
Okay. K. Dot, somebody I think the identity has to be delivered that we're tougher than this. Because I've seen a soft offense, and you never saw that when you had Trey Evans, Caleb McGarry, Nick Harris, Coleman Shelton. When you had those guys out, you knew that they were going to punch the other team in the mouth every single play.
Yeah, I like that you kind of bring up Sean McGrew and saying, he didn't come back for this, because I think we have, we didn't get to see Sean McGrew the first 2 games. And since he has stepped foot on the field in 2021, he's made almost every snap count. Yeah.
6 touchdowns, 2 in the last 3 games, each in the last 3 games.
Yeah, he finally was the one who broke Washington's rushing for, we were talking about Washington is one of the only 2 teams in the FBS to not rush for more than 20 yards in 1 carry. He finally got up to 39. Sean McGrew definitely did that. He's kind of taken that workload on his back. So now can he kind of be the leader and put the team on his back? We'll kind of see. It's going to be interesting, especially when you think of a leader, you think of somebody who is in every single game. And not being in those first 2 games, I think it can be a little disheartening to be that leader when you're not getting playing time. You know what I mean? And who knows the reasons behind why he didn't kind of see the field? Was there a little minor injury we didn't know about? Who knows? I know Jimmy kind of just mentioned that in practice, Richard needs to be the one who is getting the best practices. And then, you saw videos of Sean McGrew in the off season, just bulking up and looking terrifying.
And I've followed Sean McGrew back when he was at St. John Bosco, and I've gotten to speak with him a couple of times, and he's a guy that he might be the smallest guy on the team. He might be the smallest guy on both teams today on the field, but he has a big stature. I think that he has. I think that he can leverage his profile into. And I remember Tom Brady, his rookie season when Drew Bledsoe went down. Tom Brady got hit on a pass. It was a little dump off, and he got knocked down. And on the sideline, it was 3rd down, and he went over and he grabbed his offensive lineman by the shirt and said, "You're not going to do that again, or you're not going to be playing." And he did that as a rookie. He got in their face, and you never saw anybody else get out of line on a Tom Brady team. They always did their jobs so well so that he could do his job well. And Sean McGrew, if he did that, if he does that, I think he has the stature, he has the profile, and now for the last 3 games, he has the body of work to back up that, hey, I came back, I put in the hard work, and it's going to pay off. And, I need you to do your job. Jackson, MJ, whoever it is. Vic Kern, he's the center now, I believe. So whoever it is, do your job. The thing that I have been impressed with is we didn't see much of him because I think he was injured against Oregon State, but Devin Culp. You want to talk about people stepping up. In the game against Cal, he stepped up. So, everybody behind those starters has to step up as well.
Yeah, Devin Hope stepped up big time when Kate Otten was, that first game he missed against Cal, came up big. Had a couple drops against Oregon State, so he was kind of in there. It was just, not really the way that Washington was going in terms of passing, was hitting those tight ends. And I think that's a good transition to kind of talk about Del Morris a little bit and not doing his, checkdowns. Going back and watching Oregon State, like you kind of saw it in person, but he was very much focused on the left side of the field. And a lot of his rushes came from that right side that he didn't see coming because he just wasn't really scanning the entire field. So I think this is going to be a good test for Dylan Morris. It's going to be a good indicator of Dylan Morris in terms of the adjustments that he does make. If he went back and took this bye week to look at all the film so far from the first 2 games and be like, oh, you know what? I gave it away. He has 1 more touchdown than he has interceptions on the season, which doesn't look good, Jack, right? You kind of want to make sure that, 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, you got to change that. You got to change that quick, especially if you do want to kind of keep your starting job. And if Dylan Morris had used this bye week to kind of look back, say, yeah, I gave a little bit of away because my eyes were locked on my receiver the entire time. We talked about Jimmy Lake and the adjustments that he has made in this bye week. I think the biggest one that Washington does need to see is going to come from Dylan Morris and making better decisions.
And the thing that is pretty fixable. It's just being able to, again, trust that when you tell your receiver you're going to run this route, that he knows that this guy is going to do it. Because if this guy over here is, and I'm just gonna say, if Mike is out there and he's doing a 5 and out instead of a 5 and in, and you see that, and you're like, okay, he just ran himself in his zone. He's not going to pay attention to that. I don't know exactly what he was not wanting to look at, but you know that UCLA will have looked at it and said, hey, we're going to bring pressure from the right side until he figures it out.
Yeah.
And if he can't figure it out, it could be a long day for the Huskies.
Yeah, there was quite a few times where, Terrell Bynum is fast, and Jalen McMillan is fast, and there was many times that they were burning those DBs for Oregon State just with their legs alone, and progressions, checkdowns didn't happen for whatever reason, but it's going to be one of the biggest things that I think the Washington does need to do right if they want the offense to keep going, because especially if Dylan Morris is dangerous with his arm today and the receivers are bringing in some great catches and getting yards off of it, it's going to open the run game for Sean McGrew, Kamari Pleasant, Richard Newton. So it's definitely got to be a happy medium, I think, today if Washington does want to be successful against Chip Kelly.
Yeah, and well, let's move on quickly to special teams. Because
what a jump!
You're,
what a jump!
I think you had a crush on the Husky punter. Kicker.
I loved Tim Horn.
Tim Horn.
I loved him.
And I imagine there were a few cried tears on your pillow over the last couple of days. But I think, in fact, I think every Husky fan probably had sort of a fan crush on him, because we had the punter that everyone wanted. He was a kicker. He was a bad-looking dude that wasn't one of those Zendejas kids. This was a kid from Hawaii that was linebacker big, and he wasn't an Australian kicker either.
Yeah.
But he was a dude with a big leg, and to see
he had
him.
2 trunk thighs.
Yeah, to see a punter enter the transfer portal, that shows you how far the trickle down is on the transfer portal.
Yeah, that Tim Horn situation really rubbed me the wrong way, just kind of for a few reasons. Just because I think he's had the legs since he first came in to be able to be a place kicker. Obviously, he did not really get the opportunity. He had a couple of field goal attempts or PATs this season, not any field goals. He had a couple of PATs that he got to do. But he had Oregon State 2 years ago. I liked him when he was coming in as a freshman. But Oregon State 2 years ago, he's sitting there, and we're right behind Washington's bench, my dad and I, and they kick into the net while the game is going on, just staying warm and everything like that. And these Oregon State fans were like trying to give him a hard time, and he just kept egging them on. Like, he had such a personality for a kicker. You don't really see many kickers who egg on the fans, but he was a great one to watch, and definitely will miss seeing him wear purple. And
he's in the transfer portal, but it doesn't mean that the door is closed.
100%. But I don't know. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way that even on, he got a couple PAT attempts, but not really seeing him get any big time field goal attempts is something that rubbed me the wrong way, just because, when he first committed and you and I were talking about him and doing a show on him, we were sitting there naming all those awards that he won. Like Vegas kicking, and he won this, and he won that, and he won this, and he won that. He has a leg for it. He had the leg for it. He has the accuracy for it. Why did he never get to see the field? I don't know. I will be the first to say that, he probably should have gotten the nod to start.
Yeah, he was a freak. I'm not going to say somebody should get a start. I'll leave that to the brains like you. Because Jimmy Lake wants to win, and he's not going to hold somebody back. He can't put them in position to win. But the other freak, actually 3 freaks. Grace Porter is an absolute freak with his punts.
Yeah.
But the Huskies long snapper, Jaden Green, he runs a 4.6 40. Okay, the long snapper cannot be touched, so he essentially turns into an extra gunner. Okay, and I'm trying to remember how tall he's 5'10", 210 as a long snapper that can run a 4.6. He has 3 tackles on the season. Tell me another long snapper that has done that. Now, there was Cameron Van Winkle a couple of years ago that had 2 fumble recoveries. But this is sort of.
One was at Oregon.
Yeah. So these are some of the fun things to kind of look at, that oddities in the special teams. But to see Jaden Green, and I don't know if you remember his very first snap as a long snapper.
I do. Last season? I do.
A kid from Arizona snapping in the rain was a disaster waiting to happen. But so the Huskies, I love looking at the special teams and the things that they can do. Peyton Henry is one of the most accurate field goal kickers in Washington history, though.
Let's
just not say big names.
That'll be a topic for another time. I'm sure if you're a Washington fan, you know how bad kickers have burned Washington fans in recent years. And so
he's more accurate than Tristan Biscayno kicking extra points in the NFL.
Tristan Biscayno has a job after bouncing around for a while, which is very impressive. But, when you talked about the snap in his very first snap at Oregon State last season, and how sideways that went. And then when it happened in Corvallis 2 weeks ago with that bad snap that went over Race Porter's head that he then went to re-kick, I saw it all happening. I was like, no, not again. And how it got through there for about 54 yards is beyond me.
Are you talking about the Seahawks?
No. I'm talking about Race Porter down in Corvallis 2 weeks ago with a bad snap, and he still kicked it. Wow.
Oh, okay.
I was like, no, not again.
Okay.
Oh, the double punt.
The double punt. I think every Seahawks fan was like, what are you doing? And then it's like he was the only one in the stadium that knew the rule.
Yes. I was working, so I did not get to watch. I heard about it. And I've heard both that, they went back, they looked at it.
He was across the line.
So that's what I heard. I heard that he was across the line. However, if he wasn't, it definitely would have been legal. So this is something you don't see every day.
Yeah.
Something you don't see every day.
So, is that a rule in high school or college that you know of?
Yeah, so you can still punt, and especially if it is blocked, you can.
In high school?
Yes, you can kick again as long as you are behind line of scrimmage. The second, so say it got blocked and it rolled a yard past the line of scrimmage in high school, you cannot advance it. So you can fall on it, but you can't advance it. You can't pick it up and run with it. As soon as it crosses the line of scrimmage, it's done. The receiving team can advance it, but that clearly did not happen with the Seahawks. And, it's interesting just how intricate special teams really is.
And the reason I asked Kaila is she's one of the top high school football officials, and we're going to have a pretty cool story on her hopefully here in a few weeks, because a milestone coming up is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I got evaluated last night in my game.
You got evaluated. Do they give you that now, or do you have to wait a couple of weeks?
No, so what happens is they have the entire game recorded, and they go, they send it to the state, the video, and they will clip it every single snap of the entire game. And they will break down every single snap and tell you what you did right, what you did wrong, and then you get a big report back about a week later, and they have to do that for all the officials on that game. So it takes a little bit, but yeah, it was a interesting game. It was a close game. It wasn't a blowout, so it made a little bit better, and I got to game with my dad.
Nice. Okay. Well, it is 9:30. Kickoff is
In 8 hours.
8 hours away. Thanks for those of you that are watching us live or that are watching us eventually. It's been a lot of fun sitting here talking. Kaila and I don't get to do this. We've had Alameda for most of the season, but and Tracy Ford sitting in a couple of times.
Yeah.
But it's fun to sit down. And something that we created 3 years ago was 4 years ago, Kaila's Keys.
Yes.
Kaila's Keys to
4
the
years
game.
ago.
So let's go with your first one. I'll let you pull up your document if you don't have it.
Yeah, so always got to start that offense, do one offense, one defense, and then one miscellaneous. And the first one for offense, and it's kind of what you and I already talked about, but Dylan Morris needs to control the offense, and he needs to do his check down, and he needs to be a leader. And I put that on Dylan Morris because he's the captain of the offense, and he's somebody who does get to determine how the play goes. And there is that potential. You talked about the ice in the veins. He has stepped up big, and we've seen him kind of struggle a little bit. So can he step up, be that leader, do those progressions and check downs? The offense is going to fall on Dylan Morris. I fully believe how well the offense does has to be with him.
I very much agree with that, and like I've been saying, since Jimmy Lake took over, I'm waiting for somebody to step up, to be that Jake Browning, to be that Jake Locker, to be that guy that holds everybody accountable on the defense, on the offense, and especially themselves. Somebody that says, okay, last game I didn't look over here. I think I need to look over here. Something basic like that. Just all of the things, whether it's progressions, whether it's interpreting what the defense is giving. This is his 10th game? No, 9th game. No, 10th game. He is what as a starter? Is he 8 and 8? Excuse me, 4 and 4, 5 and 4, 5 and 3, 5 and 4. So for a young quarterback, I see a lot of room to grow. I see where when he gets that offense running downhill, nobody can stop them. They become unstoppable. The only thing that ever stops them is themselves. And then they'll go through a long route of where it's a 3 and out, and it's a turnover when it's something like that. It all comes back to, like you said, Dylan Morris being the key to this game, because this defense is giving up 17 points a game. Okay, this is a very good defense. It would be even better if the offense could hold up their end of the bargain.
And I love how you went really in depth with that too, because that's kind of the way I was going with it too when I was thinking of the keys I wanted to do. And you look at UCLA and what they do numbers. You're a big numbers guy. I love my numbers. You know, we're nerds that way. And that's why we gel so well. But UCLA allows 92 rushing yards a game compared to 308 passing yards a game. And so, like we kind of touched on a little bit before, you know, if Dylan Morris can hit those receivers and make that UCLA defense be honest and kind of worry about the passing game a little bit more, it's going to open up that run game. And because, you know, we looked at the numbers in terms of how well rushing and how well passing is doing compared to one another, and that's offensive identity. If they can take advantage of that, do it. I don't, and I kind of said it last time, I don't care if you're iterating for a game, if that's what works. Get the win. I don't care that way. And it starts with Dylan Morris, 100%. Defensively.
Okay, I want to go.
Yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
go into that real quick. The Huskies' worst quarter for points is the third quarter, where they have a touchdown and 2 field goals. Their best quarter is the fourth quarter. Okay.
You would think it would be the first because of the 2 offensive drives that started out the points in 2 games.
Yeah, well, it's close. They scored 38 points in the fourth quarter, 35 in the first quarter.
Interesting.
But that third quarter, where teams have adjusted and the Huskies have not, it really has shown up there. And I'm going to kind of add on to what you said there about all those things, is to offensively, what you did script-wise in the first drive of the game, do it in the first drive of the third quarter. Get that magic that you have in the fourth quarter and the first quarter and bring it in the third quarter, because you can't start putting up 13s. You know, I'd be happy if they scored 13 in the third quarter of this game, but you have to be able to be consistent, and that shows inconsistencies, and it shows that other teams are learning of what you are doing, and you are not learning what you do best.
I like that you kind of concluded with that, because I think that really wraps that key up nicely. Moving on to the defensive one, it's been my defensive key the last 3 games.
3 years?
Oh, probably that too. Stop the run. And that's what the defense has got to do. It's the big defensive key for the game. Just because you kind of look at how UCLA does have that workhorse, you know, in that backfield with Zach Charbonnet. We talked about him, and he likes to run. He's good at running. Washington's got to stop it. He has 7 touchdowns alone. You know, if Washington's defense can run, the DBs have got the backfield, you know. Whether you want to kind of bring some a little bit closer to the line, make them pass, make Kaila Gordon and Duke Trent kind of do what they do best, just stop the run. Defensive key, I say as easy as that. Of course, it's never that easy, but Washington has got to get that together in terms of, you know, staying in this game and making teams work for it. Don't make it so easy. Don't give up 3rd and long on the run.
Yeah, and the thing that I kind of want to touch on a little bit is linebackers. Edifon came into the season as an All-American candidate and kind of fell off the radar for a little bit. Jackson Sermon has looked great out there. The linebacker play, I'm actually kind of happy with it.
It can't be worse than it has been before.
The Huskies have churned out linebackers. Look at last year and the year before with Edifon.
Yeah.
When Edifon is getting 178 tackles, that means that somebody else is not getting 50 tackles. So, but the outside linebacker for me, I think, is where this game turns defensively. Braylon Trice, Cooper McDonald, Jeremiah Martin, and Ryan Bowman. Those are four players that like to get after the quarterback. Can the straw that stirs the drink for the Huskies be ZTF, who requires a double team and helps everybody else get better in this game? Where do you see the defense kind of turning on this? Is it going to be a Kyler Gordon with 2 picks? Is it going to be Trent McDuffie? Is it going to be Bookie? Is it going to be, who do you think is going to be the guy that has to step up on that defense and really kind of require the double? Oh, Savell Smalls, he's another guy.
Yeah.
So there are, the Huskies have 6 very good pass rushers. I see the most important player on the field today being that edge rusher that puts pressure on the quarterback, but where the other side can contain the quarterback.
Yeah, I like that you kind of say that team needs to have a better defensive game, and it kind of comes back to Mikey was stopping the run, and it's not even just the defensive line being big boys and stopping the run, but it's also, you can go back to the Cal game and getting pressure to the quarterback, but then Chase Garber's running to get out of those situations and picking up first downs. And that also kind of comes back to stopping the run, is, getting back there, not having those missed tackles, containing the quarterback when he does try to run, stopping the running backs and everything like that. And I think the person who does have to probably have the biggest game, somebody who said did drop off the radar a little bit, is Zen. Just because, without ZTF still there, just picking up that workload, 41 tackles on the season compared to, you go back to Ben Verkerven one year, on that Ben Verkerven for Heisman train. It just seemed like he was getting 41 tackles a game almost, not actually, but definitely up there. And so in terms of, stopping that run game, it's got to be Eddie who leads the way today. Just because I don't think there's going to be nearly, as much passing going on. They're going to want to run. And if Chip Kelly's done his homework, which Chip Kelly very much has done, Washington looked to do very well against the run game against Oregon State, but that final drive, it was running that killed Washington for Oregon to get their last touchdown.
And I think they just wore down because they were.
You can say it. I know what you're thinking.
They're young, and they're not going to have. I remember when LeBron went in, and he in his rookie year, he kind of tailed off at the end of the season. Then when he had his durability built up, that's one reason why you don't see a lot of young players go in and play 182 games in baseball, because it's such a long season. And for those defensive defensive linemen to always be in pursuit. And remember, they're lugging around 2 of you.
Oh, a lot more than 2 of me.
Okay. their one leg is as big as both of your legs together. So they're doing a lot of work out there, and it's harder on them than any other player. I think physically, you see Alameda, who now is, I think he's under 300 pounds now, where he said he was at 380 at one point. But the strain that it puts on your body, but the Huskies are building up endurance in these guys. And this game right here, while I think it is going to come down to who can, come off of the edge, I don't think you ever really get a good clean shot at DTR. I think his feet are too happy for that. But yeah, to the Disney in there.
It's like my favorite. I love happy feet.
But I think his feet are happy enough that you're not going to be able to get a good clean shot on him, unless it's a stunt and it's by booking or it's by Edifon. Ryan Bowman, I think, is a guy that can consistently get in there and bring him down, but not get a good clean shot that knocks him out for the game. I think that this needs to be the most complete game that the Huskies play on defense, from the defensive backs latching onto the receivers, from the linebackers controlling those running lanes, and the linemen containing the quarterback and setting up for the linebackers to do their job. Now, Edifon, he is leading the team in tackles again to Jackson's 38. So he's back to being Edifon. He's back to being an All-American candidate. I don't know what went wrong. He's not the kind of guy that I ever saw losing his spot because I thought he cherished it so much. But maybe he's the better guy for it, and maybe he is the alpha dog that no longer needs to set the example, but be the Sean McGrew, be Sandra Bullock grabbing the face mask and saying, you gotta make sure that you close off that A gap because we were on a stunt over here. He has to be able to. He has that credibility. As ZTF comes back, I think he has the credibility as well to be that alpha dog on defense.
I was going to throw in, sack numbers for both quarterbacks, with DTR having 14 on the season, Dylan Morris having 12. But, you ended up perfectly there with that one. And then my final key, of course, it's kind of that miscellaneous one. And it comes down to a little bit on the offense, a little bit on the defense, mainly the offense. And that key is going to be to help the defense not have a short field. 4 out of 5 of Oregon State's scoring drives started in Washington's territory. Oregon State did not have short ball. Made it very easy. Just turnovers, field position, what have you. And the biggest thing that can help the shining star for Washington, which is the defense, and it's something that Chip Kelly even pointed out as he was like, I don't care if Washington seems to be on a downgrade. That is still Washington defense, and Washington defense is scary, no matter how good or bad of a season it looks that the Huskies are having. And that being said is, the offense has got to help the defense have room to work with. You can't expect on that kind of final drive where Oregon State hits the field goal. Washington's defense could only give up about 15 to 20 yards, and that's a lot to ask for. And that being said, the offense has got to get downfield. They've got to do more than just 3 and out. They have to do in good field position and a lot of room to work with, just if they want to stay in it. Because at that point, it's not the defense that's giving up points almost, but kind of the offense.
Yeah, and against Cal, Washington won the field position battle. against Oregon State, they essentially won the field position battle, except that when Oregon State was given short field position, they capitalized on it. They only had, I think they had 2 drives that started beyond the Washington 45. Against Oregon State, the Huskies, Oregon State did not start beyond their own 39. So the Huskies.
Just the one that resulted in the fumble.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you're absolutely right. I think field position against a Chip Kelly team, though, I think in a Stanford game and a Cal game, and now we're seeing it, sort of the same philosophy there in Corvallis. Those things matter. Where they matter less is with a high-powered offense like UCLA that can score from anywhere on the field. They don't need to grind out a drive. They can have one pass and be in the end zone.
Yeah.
Where the receiver can get behind a defensive back or that running back, Charbonnet.
Yeah.
Did I get it right? I know I was jokingly saying it wrong earlier, but they can hit you from anywhere, and I think this is where Washington has to keep them from being explosive, because field position is going to matter, but it's not going to matter in the way that it did against Cal and Oregon, and in a few weeks Stanford.
Yeah, I like that you did bring up, that UCLA is explosive enough that, like I was saying in my stats earlier, 75-yard pass twice, one from wide receiver, one from the tight end, It's not like they can't knock off those big plays, but it's also not putting Washington's defense back in the field and on the goal line, just to kind of be like, okay, we've got, 75 yards to work with compared to 20. I still haven't finished my coffee.
Okay. We had to go with an auxiliary mic because there's something wrong between here and there. So we had to go with a wireless mic. So this is the regular mic, this is the wireless mic. But the habit is to go here when we actually need her over here. So anyway, it's just kind of funny.
But
drink up, honestly.
Just the 75 yards compared to 20 yards, you're essentially only giving the defense 2 first downs to work with compared to maybe 7 to get a takeaway, a turnover. It's just a lot more opportunity for the defense to do what the defense does best, create pressure, they have it, get some takeaways, and, win the game for Washington. Because, Washington's championships 2016 came off of interceptions, 18 came off of a pick 6. And so with that being said, offense just has got to help a little bit more. And not even just short field position, but giving the defense a break. You mentioned the defensive line that comes back to the run game, which is my key number 2, So a lot of volume to carry around. They got to have a break. And 3 and outs not the rule either.
Prediction.
Washington by 3.
I like it, but score prediction.
I'm going to go at 24-27 dogs.
27-24 dogs. Okay. That was kind of right where I was going, but I sometimes I'll go completely homer on it.
70-21.
Like I did against Oregon State. I said the Huskies were going to win by 20. I was slightly off. Kaila said that the Huskies were going to lose by 3. She was slightly accurate.
100%. They lost by 3.
So I'm with you, but I think the Huskies are going. I think it may be a track meet. And the Huskies are going to need to put points on the board in every single quarter. They can't have a quarter off because UCLA Chip Kelly is in full effect there, and every single play he's going to try to score. In every quarter, he's going to try to score. He's going to try to have 75-yard touchdown passes throughout the game. So the Huskies are going to have to play wide open offense because I think UCLA's defense is susceptible to a lot of things. So I think that it's going to still be a 3-point game, but I think it's going to be in the 30s.
I like it.
I think that this is the game, though, that the streak of 35 points or under ends for the Huskies defense. But I want to throw some love the way of the dog mother. You and I both know her, and she has I was talking to Walter Bailey yesterday, who was a defensive back on Washington's national championship season in 1991, and he said that she was the dog father to all of us who played for, the dog mother for everybody that played for Don James. And just sitting there in the living room with her the few times that you have, I want to get your what it's like to be with a person that has that stature, but she's so humble and she just looks at you in the eyes and talks to you like you're her daughter or granddaughter.
Yeah, Carol is probably one of the greatest human beings I think I've ever met, and she has so many stories. So I love going, you know.
You have to have your tape recorder going when you walk in the door.
Every time, and she talks to everybody, kind of like you said, like she's their own. And I know talking to some former players too, when we were doing a bunch of interviews for the Don James documentary, it was kind of just, you know, yeah, Don James was our coach and he was the one who recruited us, but she would have them over for a dinner so that she could talk to them, and after they would leave, Don James would ask her if he was allowed to offer them, because, you know, she had just such a good read on people, and they were very much a team. So you can't have a dog father without a dog mother. I think she also helped him be successful, and, you know, hearing their story about them, you know, being high school sweethearts and how they would, you know, travel together and they made these big life-changing decisions together, where they would move, and how when she did move one time, there wasn't enough children's programs, and so she was the host of a child show on TV so that her kids could watch the children's show, you know, like, she just has some of the greatest stories. And if that, you know, isn't enough, when I broke my leg in half the night before the season opener 3 years ago, and I was on crutches in the ER, you know, went up to the Don James suite, because
that's right.
Yeah, you know, so that I didn't have to go all the way down the stairs on crutches, and that's Carol as a person.
Yeah.
And
that's her in a nutshell.
It's her in a nutshell. And even all these years later, and with Don James passing, she still holds Washington near and dear to her heart, as well as everybody that does go through that program and has gone through that program.
And of course, it does it again. No matter which way we turn the camera on Twitter, we're going to upload the show. We'll put the link on Twitter for it. If we have the camera facing one way, it rotates it. If we have it facing this way, it rotates it again. I cannot figure out what's going on.
Just spin it, so it's constantly spinning.
Yeah. Anyway, the thing that I talk with her probably every couple of weeks, and the one thing that she says that she gets so many calls from the players even today. The kids, they call her Mama James, and that's what Walter calls her. That's what so many other players call her. And but the thing that we kind of talked about was this coin toss. That because one of her sort of joking laments is that Don never let her call a play. Okay, because when they were at the University of Miami, he wrote down all the plays on a flashcard. It had the situation with the down, the distance, the time in the game, and he wrote down all of those things, and she would test him on that. She would show him the down and distance, and he was supposed to be able to tell her the play. And through doing that, she learned the University of Miami playbook.
Probably better than all the players did.
Yeah, so she knew a lot of the plays, but when Don switched over to be a defensive coordinator and a defensive backs coach, when he was at Colorado, Florida State, and Michigan, there were no offensive plays to call. So then when he got to the head coaching position at Kent State and then here at Washington, she always kind of, he was like, can I call the first play? Can I call the first play? And he never let her. And so now to be able to get down there onto the field and actually be the one that flips the coin, to be able to do that where he did it once, she's going to be able to even the score with him on that one, she said. So, she's been dealing with some health issues related to vertigo. But when I talked to her yesterday, I got her fired up because I was like, this is your chance to even the score. She's like, yeah, I'm getting out of bed. I'm going to be there tomorrow, whatever it takes. And she's like, you've inspired me. And so, when she answered the phone, she was like, hi, Mike. And it wasn't her normal, hi, Mike, how are you?
Yeah.
And by the end of the conversation, she was ready to run through a brick wall for the coin flip. So the history of the backstory of what this coin flip means to her personally is, and this story I'll be putting out there here in a little bit, but it's just absolutely a hilarious story from her.
And if she really wants to get ahead, if UCLA loses the coin toss, she should just go ahead and tell the white hat that Washington wants to defer for them, just so she really can actually get her one calling decision there and make that coin toss.
Or do that thing that we did as kids. Heads I win, tails you lose.
Oh, 100%. That's a friend's thing. Yeah, when Rachel has to go to move away, she's like, okay, I can't believe I'm doing this again.
So do that to UCLA, whatever it takes. But this is going to be such a great time for her and her family. She's going to have her three kids there. She's going to have the captains from the 1991 team, Mario Bailey, and I'm trying to think of who the other captains were. But today, we're at 30 years removed from the national championship season, a season that I have my program, I have my ticket from those games. I used to have, and it may be in a Foot Locker, but I wrote down with this glue pen that you could write on your shirt.
Oh, yes.
12-0, undefeated national champions. I made my own shirt. This was the greatest time of Husky football because there was ice water in every single player's veins. And I think that if they can unlock that magic, if Mario can go in there and tell them what it took to be a champion and what it took every single game and every single play, and the other captains that are going to be out there, I think that this is going to be, because I don't think there's going to be a dry eye, because the thing that Carol has said so many times is, I feel the love from Husky Nation. And today, to be able to return that love, she said, it's going to be so wonderful that I get to return that love to Husky Nation. I don't think that you have to have a stone cold heart to not have a tear coming down when she's out there.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing Carol James again back on Husky territory, there at Montlake. And looking forward to seeing the throwback uniform that Washington is wearing today, with the old logo and everything. It's really great. Looking forward to seeing more players. It's homecoming. There's going to be a lot of people there. It's going to be a great game. Chip Kelly's back for the first time in a long time since he was with Oregon there at Montlake. It's going to be an exciting day.
And maybe Jimmy Lake will let Carol James call a play. I mean, what could be worse?
Honestly, but she could do a lot better. And I think, if John Donovan does go, Carol James, she's going to take off.
She's got her brain is a steel trap. I mean, these memories that are,
she's the memory of
names of players that she encountered when they were at Colorado and they were at the Independence Bowl, I think it was, in Tennessee. She could tell stories of players and their names and everything. So, this is just, hey, Lake, barrel a shot at one of the plays. Even if it's kickoff, kick left, kick right, kick down the middle.
It's going to go for 99 yards, just you watch. No, but in all seriousness, super excited. Hopefully you can make it, and we're so glad you can make it to this live show where Mike and I got to do a show for the first time in a long time. So this is the Husky Nation Sports Illustrated pregame show, UCLA edition 2021, where we kind of broke down a little bit of everything from high school football all the way to, Carol James and that 91 national championship team. So thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully we see you next time. Until next time, we are live here at FSK for Sports Performance, where some of the top athletes come to train. You have to trust the process. You can't cheat the grind. Mike, before we go ahead and sign off, any final thoughts?
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Cut them all. Stop. This.
Hello? Good, how are you? Literally just signed off like 5 seconds ago. Yep. Nice. What time are you having lunch? Okay, well, I'm still here, so I have to go home and everything like that. Let me call you when I'm leaving. Yeah. But I don't think Patsy's going to want that out all the way to it, though, but... Yeah, we can do that. Wait, you drove across? Oh, I thought you were walking.